8 things every investor wants to know about buying a business. I'm Jeramiah Townsend, the business broker and advisor. I am here answering your question today. What are the top questions that an investor is going to want to know about buying your business? They're going to want to know these things. Now, as a business broker, these points are something we put together in what's called a teaser. It's a public-facing blip of information. This is the absolutely essential minimum amount of information that you need to have when listing a business. So this is very important to have. And if you sell a business, these are the 8 things that an investor will absolutely ask you before they get serious. That's right. If you don't have these 8 pieces of information, they're not even going to be serious about looking at the company until they know the answers to these 8 questions. Number 1, investors need to know your top line revenue, whether it's gross sales or turnover. They need to know how much money does the business bring in. That's one of the first questions. Is it 500,000? Is it 100,000? Is it $1 million? Is it $5 million? They need to know the top line revenue. Number 2, investors need to know your net income. That means how much money you put in your pocket. So every year, how much money does the business generate for the owner? Sometimes they call this SDE, for seller's discretionary earnings. Sometimes they call it EBITDA. Sometimes they call it take home. But you want to know how much value is this generating for the owner. Sometimes they call it cash flow. Number 3, investors need to know your rough geographic location. They don't need to know the address. They do not need to know the name of the business. And that's different in real estate. Real estate people advertise the address and the name of places all the time because where your house is located is important to a lot of buyers. But for investors, that's usually not the first concern. But they do know that they want to expand in a general area, or they want to buy a business in a general area. So having the geographic area, whether you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or you're in East Texas, or you're in Kansas, or you're on, Central California or the San Fernando Valley, you need to have the general geographic location. And generally speaking, for a business, that does not tell the buyer anything about the business other than about where it's located. Number 4, investors need to know your industry. Are you in gun manufacturing? Are you a service-based business? Are you an HVAC company, an electrician, a retail company, a clothing store? They need to know just usually something similar to the NAICS code of your business. So if you have that, great. Number 5, investors need to know staffing levels. How many employees you have. A company that has 10 employees but makes $100,000 a year for the owner is a lot different than a company with no employees and makes $100,000 a year for the owner. Believe it or not, they are 2 totally different business types, and they require 2 totally different investors with 2 different mindsets. So you need to know how many staff are in the company. Number 6, an investor wants to know if you have a management team in place. Some investors, some business buyers, they're okay with being an owner-operator. A lot of businesses are good businesses, and they're owner-operated businesses. Other investors, they want to know that there's a management team in place. So you got to answer the question of if you have a management team in place. Number 7, investors need to know how many hours the owner puts into the business. What does the owner do in the business? That sort of thing. What kind of work? If the owner is generally overseeing the operations of the company, that's one type of investor. If the owner performs a lot of the products or services in the company, That's a different type of investor. Does the owner spend 10 hours a week, 30 hours a week, or 50, 60 hours a week in the business? These are the kind of things that you'll have different owners, because a lot of good owners, the business, they might buy this business as a side business. So that's something to think about. Finally, point number 8, investors will need to know the asking price of the business. They need to know how much the company costs. I've been in a lot of situations where a business owner says, oh, I want to sell my business, but I'm not willing to tell you anything about it. How can an investor make a good, logical decision on whether or not to buy that company if somebody is not going to help them out? Or a seller will say, well, I want $2 million for my company. And so I bring a qualified buyer for a $2 million business. And the seller thinks that the buyer has all that cash just sitting in a bank account. That's usually not the case. Usually the buyer is going to finance it. So the buyer is going to need the financials, at least the basic financials of top line revenue, net income, so that they can take that to a banker to get a letter that the business is pre-qualified for sale. If they don't have that information from the seller, it really cuts out what the buyers can do. It ties the buyer's hands. And that's a perfect scenario for the seller to waste the broker's time and to waste the seller's time. It makes it a lot harder. So if you want to sell your business, those are the 8 things you really got to know. So I'm going to go over those one more time really quick. The 8 things you need to know if you're going to sell a business. And these are the things investors want to know. Number 1, they need to know your top line revenue. Number 2, they need to know your net income. Number 3, they need to know your rough geographic location. Number 4, they need to know your industry. Number 5, they need to know your staffing levels. Number 6, they need to know if you have a management team in place. Number 7, they need to know how much the owner is invested in the business, not financially, but time-wise. And number 8, they need to know the asking price of the business. Those are the 8 things that a business investor needs to know before they can look at the financials, sign an NDA, or do anything like that. I'm Jeramiah Townsend, the business broker advisor. Please subscribe to this video, follow up with me. I got a lot of great information on buying and selling a company. And as always, if you know anybody looking to buy or sell a company, let me know. But like, comment on these videos, share them, please, so that we can get the word out there and we can help people be successful. Thank you so much. We'll see ya.